Hello, and welcome to another episode of Power On Podcast 00Status. I am one of your hosts, Taylor. Would have got a 553, Agent 553, whatever. I got all the names. They're all
Yep.
mine.
All the code names.
All the code names. They are mine. Mine. They are mine.
Moneypenny 553.
I don't think
Seems to be a code name, so seemingly.
You'd think. Yeah. With me is the
Living Daylights.
The Living Daylights. It's a Living Daylights. I don't have any good words I can think of.
That's fine.
It's the party rave loving. Not at all. But Mr. Sushi B, how's it going?
Maybe at one time. Not so much now, but there was a time.
a little getting a little long in the tooth to do the Euro beat.
Yeah.
Euro trance.
I don't even know if I ever went that far into it. But nightclub scene was one thing, but I never was into like the heavy Euro beat or whatever it was called.
I love that stuff for DDR, but I was never one for that. For that as the.
Yeah, you weren't dance like nobody's watching.
Oh, I'd probably keep it that way for myself.
Make sure
I do that all
watching.
the time at home. I dance all the time at home.
Fair enough.
And they're for my own eyes only. Flah, flah, flah. But, yeah, how you doing?
Is it a view to a kill?
It's killing something. Calories.
Oh, that's a good thing.
Right. But yeah, how's it going?
Not bad, other than the number of mosquito bites that I've managed to acquire. So I'm going to do my best not to scratch while we're recording here. But I ended up with a bunch just on a short trek over the last few days. So it was a good trek and nice weather, but ended up taking a few bites along the way.
Were they kind of ferocious to where even though you had all the sprays or what have you?
Didn't even think that there were going to be any, so didn't spray up or anything.
Oof.
So no DEET, no citronella. Prime rib roast.
Yep. Those mosquitoes loved you.
Yeah. Thankfully, they don't bite multiple times, seemingly. So.
I don't know. I know they eat. They drink me pretty plentifully. They're like, oh, Taylor's out and about.
Yep.
He's a pretty tasty fellow. Yeah.
Well, what did Brosnan say in Die Another Day? They feast.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Well.
Thank you for revisiting that one.
Well, we've revisited quite a few titles and stuff at this point. So.
Yeah. Now we're trekking into new ground.
We are, yeah, with our final Bond.
Yeah, the one that's the
final actor.
I mean, it's a little harder, I guess, because there was those two where with Lazenby there was just the one, so you can kind of be like, okay, let's go for broke and take care of that one,
right?
Kind of thing. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about the Living Daylights and Timothy Dalton.
Yes, sir.
That's a pretty poor drum roll sound on my part, but
that'll
have to do.
You know what? That's kind of unfortunately kind of what happened to Timothy Dalton in this role. He was kind of just squared into it quick.
Well, and how familiar are you with what had happened? Because this was supposed to be Brosnan's.
It was supposed to be Brosnan, yeah, and then the whole Remington Steele they upped his contract or whatever, and so he was it Broccoli or whatever said, I'm not gonna have Bond be also Remington Steele or something. He said he can't be on TV and be Bond or something.
Something like that. But and the Steele peeps, there was like a window of 60 days where if they didn't film anything, that he was free from the contract, and then on like the 56th day or something, they're like, oh hey, here's 5 new episodes we've got.
Sure, of course. That always seems to happen with a lot of these intellectual properties, right? They get into the hands of a studio of some kind, and then they pump out a bad movie just so they can hang on to the rights for another
I think
5
you're
years.
talking about Sony and Spider-Man there for a while.
Well, not only them, but there's several studios that have lots of intellectual property rights that they
Right.
just hang on to, and then they maybe make, say, a comic book or something, or they make a film, or they make whatever that allows them to continue to hold the rights, depending on what the contract looks like. But I have heard of several cases. Yeah, like I know Marvel had that issue with, like, the Hulk was, they basically sold out. We won't get into it, but I know they had sold out basically every character they could think of at one point. And then they just waited for a bunch of them to finally lapse so they could get them all back. But it's like they had let, like, Ghost Rider, like characters that don't really, they have fans obviously, but not in the broad spectrum of, say, like a Superman or a Batman. Like they're not as well known. But yeah, it just anyways, back to the Brosnan thing. Yeah, it's not surprising that they did something last minute to make sure that you had to stay committed to them.
Yeah, it's pretty annoying.
Yeah.
So, because it makes me wonder what would have, that would have been kind of thing. Because, Timothy went very serious with this.
He did.
He went and was reading through the books and stuff, and he's a lot more of an introvert. So the what would you call it? The media circus is really not his cup of tea.
Yeah, it probably was a lot different than, say, Roger Moore, who really kind of
hammed it up.
Yeah, well, and from what I understand, on set and stuff, he was a very jovial person. And,
right. And you can see it
with the media, he was, and it was reflected, obviously, in the way he played the character and so forth. And I know for us, at least through our discussions, I'm presuming, not really the way we maybe interpret the character to some degree. But it was obviously the era and all of that stuff too.
Right.
So,
and that's fine to, I mean, look with Connery. Connery took it and made it his own by just being Connery.
Right.
Right. So that's not really so much of a problem, I guess. It's just, it is a very stark difference from the borderline psychopath that is Bond. Well, because there's a point of, I'm paraphrasing it, but somebody had made a remark when the books were being released, like a critic, and they said that part of the thing with Bond is that he's drinking, he's poisoning himself because that's what keeps the poison that's already within him at bay. Like, he is not, like, that's why I really like the start of the Daniel Craig stuff. The arc, the Daniel Craig arc, because that's, you can see that bubbling in there in some degree. And then I think you see that here to some degree. There's a man conflicted in a lot of different ways here, and he's not incompetent and not a goof.
Right.
He knows what he wants to do. But there's times where the orders are like, hey, there's this. And he's just like, well, sometimes stuff it.
Right.
So,
actually, funny when you bring up Craig, he must be the biggest alcohol consumer of all the Bond actors. Like, well, now that you say it, I'm thinking it through and just like, wow, there's a lot of scenes with him drinking alcohol. And it's nonchalant in a lot of sections of those films, but he must be the one who, like there always seems to be alcohol involved in a bunch of the scenes.
And it's showing that, this is him trying to suppress that sort of. So, like, there's certain things I can't appreciate with that arc, or with Craig's, that portrayal during Craig's time. Right. And it's the same thing with Dalton here. There are some quips in there, but they're very dry. Yep. And by golly gee, and that's the humor for me, because, like, I am, you talk to me enough, you know how absolutely desert bone dry a lot of my quips and just how I am can be there.
Yep.
So
you remind me of I feel like, and this could be way off, and I don't even know how familiar you are with it, but when I think of The Far Side,
You know, I'm not actually familiar with that at all.
So it was the old.
I know it's
like,
the comic. I've just never read them
from,
or anything.
But just I know I personally like it a lot, but maybe I don't know how do you introduce that to somebody. Because when it was in the newspapers, it was just you'd look at it for a moment and just you'd chuckle, or I don't know. I can't explain it really well, but it was such dry sense of humor and a lot of dark humor in a lot of ways. There'd just be there'd be a picture of the devil saying something, your pants are on fire, and the guy just standing there being like, "Oh, you're right," or something. But it just really silly stuff like that. So, very philosophical in some ways, but just so bizarre. Like it was the Far Side for a reason. It was really bizarre, and just the art style's it's a really wacky art style. So it might be something that could eventually be up your alley, but that's where I think of your humor kind of would probably fall in line.
Okay. Well, that's where, to me, Dalton kind of gives Bond. There's these. It's played really even keel and not hammed up with what Moore did.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some points that are really funny, which I wasn't expecting. Because when I watched the behind the scenes and stuff, I was kind of like, okay, I don't remember this movie, but really at all. And I guess I should probably jump back to that. Don't really remember this movie at all.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just kind of like almost starting anew sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But I was not. There were parts there I was like, oh, okay, that wasn't really expecting that sort of quip, and he's just there isn't this caricature to it. He comes off like he's an actual person,
right?
Instead of he's Bond in the movie sort of thing. And I know that's not going to appeal to some people, but that's just how that came out to me.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a very transitional movie, though, too. Mm-hmm. You can tell they wanted to start moving away from the Moore era type humor and calamity of stuff happening, and just for the sake of happening, and the convenience of a lot of stuff that happens. Conveniently there's an escape route. Conveniently there's a boat there that you can get in. That seemed to be really commonplace with a lot of the Roger Moore movies. Mm-hmm. And there's a little bit more of a, I don't know if you want to say realism, but it's certainly
like a methodicalness.
Yeah. It doesn't really just show you an instantaneous where he's definitely going to just go ahead and do that because the formula has certainly changed by this point. But you can tell there's still some transition pieces of some of those jokes that are in the movie. They're not quite as extreme as we saw with the Tarzan swing or whatever.
Right.
But there's still some stuff where you're thinking, I suppose they thought this was still funny at this point, even though they're really trying to play this a little more serious, or not a little, quite a bit more serious, actually.
Yeah, the tone is a lot more subdued in certain ways. Mm-hmm. Honestly, this movie feels, and maybe it's because of being done with Dalton, whether he only had the two, but it almost feels similar to Lazenby's.
Okay.
In certain ways. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's just because of the snow chase.
Such a tonal shift.
Yeah, there's the tonal shift. I mean, Lazenby there's some goofy quirks in there as well, but there's a bit more of a seriousness in certain ways.
For sure.
And maybe it's just also because of the bit more interplay, we'll say, with the two main characters.
Mm-hmm.
So with Kara and Bond.
Yep.
But for some reason, I just get On Her Majesty's Secret Service Part 2 or remake or something. Not necessarily a remake, but it's similar vibes. They kind of coalesce in a similar cohabitat.
I could see that, and again, you're coming off of two really long runs with the same actor, where the expectation of what the film is going to look like with that lead actor in the role is set in your mind, of whether it was Connery had done 5 at that point, before On Her Majesty's Secret Service came out, and then Moore had done 7, I think we had counted up to this point. So it's a hard shift now to put somebody new in. And so I can kind of see what you're talking about. And the tone is they're still trying to honor kind of what's come before, but they also know they have to do something a bit new.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I can see that. I will tell you this, though.
Uh-huh.
I watched this movie last year, and you're right. For whatever reason, I don't know if it just didn't sink in. But Timothy Dalton has moved up my list of Bonds after rewatching this.
I was going to say, I actually... I said the same thing because I was talking to my dad before recording this. I was telling him, I was like, I have a very shameful admission to make. And he's like, what? And I'm like, I think Timothy Dalton might be my favorite Bond.
Why is that shameful?
Well, no, it's just a joke. I'm
yeah, but for sure, like I have seen a few people online. I've seen some of these. There's some people that just strictly have like Bond channels,
right? And
I'm really surprised at how many people really like Dalton as Bond.
Yeah, he works well. I mean, he's there. Like I said, they want to mention how. And it could also be just the silliness of a lot of the things that are going around the movies, like with Brosnan. Mm-hmm. Look at Die Another Day, like how wildly out of proportion that got.
Right.
Look at with Craig stuff, how it's always this oppressive death everywhere, everybody dying,
darkness and death.
Yeah, and so it really overshadows just who he is in a lot of ways. It feels like, but and Connery's a presence, Moore is a presence. Lazenby's forgotten about a lot of times. He's like the class clown.
And it's not really his fault for being in one film only. You still in my head think what would have been like if he really had been in 3 movies, at least 3, let's say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No less than 2.
Yeah, and this does sadden me that Dalton only got the 2. Because I would be curious to see what a third one would have been, because he was originally signed for 3.
Right.
So, but
isn't that the rule of thumb? Like every actor's best Bond movie is their third movie. For a lot of people, it tends to be.
Right. So. But no, he has a really distinct look to me. Mm-hmm. Like, at first, you're kind of like, he's just something just. Is, I don't know, different, but he looks the part, and I think he plays it well. They talk about in a lot of different behind the scenes, Pierce Brosnan, he brings a humanity to him, or Daniel Craig humanizes him and stuff. To me, Dalton here has that aspect where Bond is Bond, but he is, he gets annoyed with the orders, unlike where like with Connery and Moore, they can just kind of be like, okay, we'll just follow the orders because they're super set and we're good. And he's like, no, no, and if I get fired for it, good.
Well, Roger Moore's Bond would always just upstage everybody.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Remember, he would just walk in and they say, Bond, what do you know about I don't know, Agent X-32 or something. Oh, he's a Russian defector. He's like, he knows every single detail, and you're thinking like, why is he even in this meeting? Since he seems to know everything. Well, what's the point? So.
Well, so before jumping way too far into it, what's your history here with this film?
I had seen it again long ago, like most of these movies. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was younger, and I've heard this being a common theme for a lot of people. If they see the Dalton films and the portrayal, a lot of people when they're younger really don't like these movies for some reason. And then as you grow older, suddenly you start to appreciate what's actually on film. I kind of liken it to something, not to jump back into the Marvel thing, but I do like comic books, and not as much as before. But Daredevil was always a character that I thought, oh, what a boring character. And it's just like it feels like Spider-Man, but it's not as cool as Spider-Man and whatever. Okay. And then as you get older, you start to be like, whoa, No, Daredevil is way more of an adult type character. The problems are more like an adult. The tragedies that happen feel a lot more in depth. Like it's just the interplay between characters, and Spider-Man's a bit more of it's like your intro point. Well, yeah, it's like your intro point to like what a superhero could be and what they should strive for, whereas Daredevil's a lot more in the gray zone.
Okay.
And so I kind of likened this to the same thing of you can maybe see the Brosnan films, which are generally like a little more lighthearted, right, and a little bit more fun. Mm-hmm. And then you could go the other side of it, the Craig movies, which are kind of way on the other side of that, of like we said, a lot more darker, a lot more death and serious. And these are tonally closer to the Craig movies, but there's still a little bit of that playfulness that happens. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I guess my history doesn't go that long, but again, watching it last year and then sitting down and watching it again, last year my opinion hadn't changed a lot. For whatever reason, this sit through, it changed a lot.
You grew old in that year.
Maybe. I don't know if that's the case or not, but just something really clicked this time.
Okay.
For this particular movie, because I won't talk about License to Kill yet, but I already knew something had clicked about that movie last year. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's for another one. So, okay. Yeah, and like I said, I honestly didn't really remember much of any of this, either of his films. Yeah, it's just a bit of a blank slate for me. Like, I'd seen them because I remember watching them, but like, it's just one of those things that is just sort of...
somewhat lost in the 80s shuffle, I heard as well, just because there was so much bombastic type action movies. You have Die Hard, you have Commando, you have Predator, you have Rambo, like all of these movies that are getting bigger and bigger.
Lethal Weapon, I think it came out like the same week or something. It was hitting heavy with...
So, yeah, you had a lot of change in what action was looking like. And so... I don't think Bond got forgotten necessarily. It's not like this movie did poorly financially, it did fairly well from what I can gather. But I think it does get lost in that shuffle of also trying to mimic somewhat what's going on in the world at that time and what those movies are kind of portraying and so forth. So probably didn't help that Bond was in its own class in the 60s.
Right.
Like what else can you really compare to that was that genre? Probably not a lot. Maybe some television shows, right? Like you had like the British Avengers show and stuff like that was kind of in that realm, but once the 80s hit, you had this a very different sort of cinema going experience going on in so many different genres and so forth.
Yeah. I don't have anything to add to that.
I've closed shop.
Yep. I have closed shop. I mean, I'm not like a big like 80s cinema person of knowledge there. Like, oh, I like Conan the Barbarian, but I would argue that's much more of a 70s film.
Yeah, it's like 81, so.
Yeah, it's got... is it 81? It's either 80 or 81, but it's just similarly with like... I
think it came out 82, but filmed in 81, I think it is.
Okay. But it just has a lot of vibes of 70s in it to me, compared to like thinking of...
Plus the genre is nothing like this.
Well, right. Yeah, so it's
that musical score is just...
Oh my goodness.
And this movie, I like the musical score of this movie quite a lot, actually.
Oh, yeah. Like
but it's nothing like Conan.
Yeah, right. The instrumental for The Living Daylights is really good. Really good song. Yeah. Like, holy crap.
Yeah, it sounds really good. And they knew just where to put it in this movie. And even the end credits song by the Pretenders, they sprinkle that in and out too.
Yeah.
And it sounds great in the parts that they put it in.
So yeah, they I don't know if they were I don't know if they kind of got the jitters out from, okay, we don't have more any longer. And then, well, we don't have Brosnan at the moment, so because Dalton was looked at initially back
He was.
after Connery left,
Yeah.
and Dalton himself is like, I'm a little young for this.
Right.
So it just seemed to just hit. It was just, this movie was destined for him, evidently. So
yeah, in a weird roundabout way, it eventually became so.
So yeah, I'm gonna dive into this movie.
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, so Gibraltar of all places, they're having an exercise, which, when they're talking about, they're jumping out of a plane, and it's being brought up as like this 00 mission kind of thing, and you're like, oh, they're doing it in broad daylight. Cool. Real sneaky.
Wearing a full black.
Right. Beverly Hills Ninja. You're like, okay, what's going on? And then, it starts off with an interesting kind of pivot, we'd say. Right? Yep. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just getting something. But yeah, it's an interesting sort of pivot, because you're like, okay, what's going on? There's no infiltration to blow things up. There's no, like, it's an exercise. And then all of a sudden, the exercise becomes real.
It does. But I thought that was kind of cool to start with the exercise bit, because at this point, had we ever seen Bond training or doing anything of that nature? It was always just the adventure kind of started, right? It was just, you got your mission debrief and then straight into the mission.
Yeah, this was nice. It kind of fills in, the outer edges of quote unquote like Bond world sort of thing, and I guess gives it a little bit fuller feel, instead of like, oh, it's just the mission, or at least this mission. And it was cool to have they don't do it at first, but I think they do it at the end portion right before the opening credits, of getting that first person view parachuting down.
Yep.
Which was pretty neat there.
Yep.
I thought so.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like the introduction of Bond in this. You didn't have to go with a classic saying his name or ordering a vodka martini or anything like that. There's a bit of a suspense. Like, if you went into this movie and you had no idea who the James Bond actor maybe was, you might be kind of confused of what's going on. Why are there three people parachuting? Is any of these actually James Bond? So forth. And then it's just a great shot, really. You see one of the other agents is being killed off, and then it just kind of shows Bond just doing, his everyday life. I think it's a big change from this big dramatic, oh, he's got to have a walk-in and, the light turns on or something. It's just zooms in on him with a kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not confused, but like he looks surprised,
what's
right?
going on, right?
Yeah, like what's going on here? Look on his face, and leads to a really cool action sequence, and it looks like Dalton did as much as he could for the action sequences.
That he did,
hanging on the truck, and not like, you can tell when it's backed out, and that's fine. But they did a good job of meshing the stunt doubles and him on certain parts of, like, and we'll see later on as well on the plane and stuff. And you can tell when it's screened, like it, and that's fine. But there are parts where you're like, oh, they actually did a good angle to really make it look like, or he actually is hanging off of that object, or
he was on the bus, or the truck.
On the truck
there at the beginning. Yeah.
That's what I thought. I thought it was actually driving. So
yeah, he was
that's pretty
he
cool.
was all for it. That's what he wanted to do. That he's like, I'm playing this part, so I need to be able to do this.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's a big change, obviously, coming from A View to a Kill, right? Where Roger Moore was at a point in his age where, he probably either couldn't do some of those stunts, or they weren't willing to let him attempt to do those stunts.
Right. It's getting the Taken 2
Well,
cut.
I'm thinking of the car getting cut in half, and it's so abundantly clear that it's another
right.
actor. I heard Roger Moore, he didn't even want to run. He thought his run was awkward, so he would get a stunt double to do just running. I read that somewhere, and I thought, wow, that is really bizarre.
I would love to read that.
Oh, it's somewhere. I think like in Octopussy when he jumped off the train, and remember he ran into the bush with the twins were coming after him with the knives.
Right, I don't.
I'm pretty sure that's a stunt double because he was thinking he was so self-conscious that he said like I look weird running.
That poor man.
So strange, such a strange factoid. And I saw somebody say something to the effect of too in View to a Kill that they think the stunt doubles are probably on screen more than Roger Moore in the entire film.
Oof.
So wow, that's pretty crazy.
Not surprising.
but crazy still. But anyways, yeah, I really like the intro scene. It is a bit weird. I don't find Dalton quite as, say, dashing as, say, Roger Moore or Brosnan.
No, he's just got a distinct look.
He certainly does, but like when he drops in on the lady in the boat and look at her problems, right? Oh, it's so poor. I'm so rich. I have nothing to do.
She just needs a man.
Yeah, us to just magically drop in.
Tennis player boys.
Yeah, tennis player boys. But it feels a little forced. Like that feels like it should have come in an Octopussy or a View to a Kill, like just that sequence. That sort of, they can't quite step out of the shadow of what's come before, but they can't quite also go so far off the deep end that he could have just escaped the island or something. Mm-hmm. So, and then it leads to, it's actually a really quick cut. Like it's not even like a fade out. It just automatically cuts straight to the theme song.
Right.
Which it's a little jarring when you're, whoa, I had to watch it twice because I thought, did I just miss the fade away? Like, what am I missing here?
Nope, it's just...
And straight into the Sonic the Hedgehog Labyrinth song, Labyrinth Zone. That sound. It sounds like it's ripped straight from Labyrinth Zone. Go listen to the Labyrinth Zone song after.
Because I never thought of that.
That's exactly where my brain goes. And it only plays that right at the beginning, that sort of synthetic sound, whatever that's coming, a keyboard sound of some kind. But this is a weird song. There's days where I love this song.
And there's days where you're just like, no.
I can't listen to it at all.
Right.
I don't know what it is about this song. There's just certain moments throughout the film. I love, like you said, the melodic versions of it. Sounds so good. But the actual main song, yeah, some days I really like it and other days I don't.
Yeah, I think I'd probably lean a little bit more into I just like the song. I like it. Okay. I don't know how I feel about it as a Bond song, kind of thing. But maybe it's just because I'm not a big fan of and I know this is going to sound weird. Like, the vocal is just a little too, I don't know how to put it. It almost feels like, I'm not trying while I sing.
But that's sort of the sound of,
I know.
From what I know. So.
I know. But it's just something about, I like the lyrics. Mm-hmm. I like the phrase, the living's in the way we die.
Okay. I like the morning comes and the headlights fade away.
Yeah. So, like, and there's parts where it does, gets into a bit more of like, I wouldn't say falsetto, but more of traditional singing to me kind of thing. But
it's a tough title to shoehorn into a song too. It's not like a title that really rolls off your tongue easily. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know, even if View to a Kill you would think would be a bit of a tough one, but they nailed that one.
Right.
And then this one, they did, honestly, a pretty admirable job to have to fit the word in, or like, I guess the title, into the actual theme.
It worked. But, yeah, it's just, I won't say it's towards the bottom. I hesitate to put it kind of in the middle. It's probably upper good.
Okay.
It's just, I don't know, maybe it's because it's paired with an awful video.
It's pretty bad.
like the only thing I found interesting that I was like, oh, that's kind of neat, was the silhouette of the man and the woman.
Dancing.
Just because of what it's alluding to.
Yeah.
With them, with the gun and that sort of thing. I was like, okay, that's I can at least appreciate that, but everything else is just like, okay, we've seen this before. We know where the song and dance goes.
I like
And
the one lady that's the water
the
light
champagne.
is reflecting off of her, or off of the
Okay.
water and reflecting onto her. I like
Gotcha,
that.
gotcha.
And they did a decent job of incorporating again the idea of lighting, obviously
Mhm.
from the title, but it's pretty dry. It's not as bad as say I know we both dislike the Octopussy one quite a bit,
Mhm.
but it's closer to that sort of, I don't know, presentation. It's more similar to a really
Mhm.
simplistic style.
Right. Yeah. There's not. They don't really push any boundaries on this.
Right. Yeah. No, for sure.
So, but yeah. And then it. I don't know. And then it just sort of goes away. It's like, okay, like it's, yeah, like you said, it's one of those weird songs where it's like, I like it, I don't, I like it, it's pretty good. It is something. I'll have to hear it again, and then pair it with Labyrinth Sonic theme to see if
Well, just that beginning
it's the
note.
beginning. I
But
get
yeah,
you. I get
just
you.
you just gotta catch that part. But there's a part in Labyrinth Zone that's, yeah, I can't quite explain it, but maybe somebody who's played Sonic 1 will kind of know what I'm getting at here with that. But obviously this precedes Sonic 1. So maybe Sonic 1 was influenced. Maybe Yuji Naka was watching Living Daylights or something. Although he wasn't the composer, so.
I would say I don't know, with that opening where they, jumped out of the plane and stuff immediately, it was like Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake. So
Could be. Well, we do
no,
know Kojima's been influenced by anything and everything, so there's particularly 80s stuff, right?
right.
So yeah, could well be. You never know.
Dun dun dun. Yeah. So, but yeah, then we jump to what is it? Bratislava, Czechoslovakia.
Yep. Well,
I
before the
somehow
just
said that
before
without flubbing it.
just before the breakup.
Right. So yeah, this film came out in '87. So
Yep.
this is the first film that so I've now been wonderfully engraced into the world. And
Okay.
this is the first Bond film that would have been when I was alive. So woo!
Yep. So you
we've
should have
hit
been seeing it at
heights.
2 or 3 years old.
I would have been.
So it should be your favorite out of the series.
When was this released? What month?
Oh, I don't know what month. Just know it's 87.
I'm trying to think. Well, depending on what month. Yeah, I think I might have been a year old.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well, you could have
not
still
like
gone to see it.
right, yeah. That's I should have.
Waving your little Timothy Dalton flag.
Yes. Little Timothy Dalton plushie.
He does have a character in Toy Story 3, so you can technically buy a Timothy Dalton plushie. He's Mr. Pricklepants. He plays a little hedgehog type character.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. And I remember watching that, and I said, "That's Timothy Dalton." I knew right away it was Timothy Dalton because he's got a pretty distinct accent and voice. Like he's got quite a deep voice, but and his voice is obviously lightened as he's gotten older. Obviously, his tone of voice doesn't sound quite the same, but I was like, I'm sure that's Timothy Dalton. I'm really sure. So he goes from James Bond to Mr. Pricklepants.
As one does in life.
Yeah. Hey, there's worse franchises to be in, and Toy Story is a pretty successful franchise. So.
Mm-hmm. So, but yeah. So we get to opens up with going into. It's not an opera house, is it? Would it be considered like an opera house? Or
I don't know if it's necessarily an opera house, but it's obviously an auditorium type, facility. It's quite small. Like it seems to be a smaller sized facility too. Like because you do have some of the upper deck. I don't know all the terminology for all of the seating and stuff in there, but would those be boxes or whatever?
Is that Is that the mezzanine?
Maybe. I don't know. But there's not many of them, right? There's only but like 4 or 5 a side, it looked like, roughly.
There's not a lot.
So there's just a few of those, and then all of the seating down in the front.
Right. But we get introduced to one of the few. The few big players here are all in the scene. Not the few, but like some big players are.
Quite a good percentage of them.
Yeah.
I can only think of 2 that I would consider major, or at least fairly upper minor characters that aren't.
Well, yeah, you get
3 actually. I can think of a third one.
You get General Koskov.
Yep.
Koskov. You get Kara.
Yep.
Who's the cellist, and then Koskov's the general, who's you don't really get an idea because it's just kind of a cold open, because this other character Saunders, who I don't know how I want to feel about Saunders.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he plays the part well and stuff and fine, but boy shucks howdy do I want to like slap him.
As he plays the sort of stereotypical snooty British politician kind of thing.
Kind of not sort of that. He's just sort
he
of
does everything by the book kind of.
Well, obviously attitude. Not, but he's got that. It's probably just the feeling like just full of himself kind of thing. So basically, I don't know how you want to broach this. I don't want to just kind of go all through it step by step.
No.
So, but he's introduced, and then you get this back and forth because Bond shows up and Saunders is like, "Why are you late?" Blah 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 blah. Oh my goodness! Stop looking at girls. We're on a mission. Like, he's such a killjoy, and he's just like, "Shut up, dude!" Like, holy crap, just got here.
Well, Bond puts him in his place in the next 10 minutes.
True.
Like, stuff happens, and then Bond kind of gives him. But we get a really good sort of snarky take on what Dalton's Bond is going to be like, right? He will break rules if he thinks he needs to actually get the job done.
You get that but he's also, and this gets highlighted with the conversation between him and M a little bit later, is that he is a more instinctual.
Right.
And because this general that's there, Koskov, is supposed to be defecting. And right. So they're like, we're getting him out. This is all Saunders' great big plan. Koskov's this like super duper awesome piece of Russia's military. His defection will be really, really great turn for us.
Right. Provide all these secrets and what have you.
Right. And what's Bond's job there to do? He's there to snipe another sniper.
Right.
And it's you're thinking, you're watching, you get that joke right there before the credits and stuff. And you're like, okay, we're in the same lane as previous Bonds and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the conversation that they have, it feels a little bit different, a little bit more professional, I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
Not in the writing in the sense, but it's like, oh, you want the soft, ended bullets. It's like, no, I want the steel ones because because a lot of Russian snipers generally wear body armor and stuff. And it's a nice, those sorts of remarks and just this sort of, not sort of, but just this, laser focus that Dalton starts to get into with Bond, as Bond with this, okay, I've got this job, this is what I'm doing, and what, blah, 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 boom. And then he sets up to, fire away at a sniper that might take out the general before he can make an escape.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. And like you said, it's kind of, I think the Saunders character is just there to really help hit some of that home. Because even though Saunders is trying to play by the rules or play by the book or whatever, and do this, in his idea of what's the right way, and Bond sort of careens off of that and says, you're wrong. As you said, the instinct piece, because he gets mad at him for not shooting the sniper.
Well, shooting to kill, because he does shoot.
Well, he shoots, but he doesn't shoot to kill her. And it's like, why is this guy got so much bloodlust? Like, he's just like, kill. Couldn't Bond shoot her in the shoulder, right, to make her incapacitated to actually take an effective shot? There's other alternatives essentially, but no, he's just like, kill her.
The only good sniper's a dead sniper.
Yeah, I guess so, but I like this whole like chunk of sequence here. It really sets up a really, and this could have been the cold open, really.
Yeah.
Like the cold open could have stopped after Bond shot her sniper rifle. That could have been like the fade into the theme song or something. Which is really cool that it's just a big chunk of the main part of the film. And it just really, as you said, it shows the clinical nature of the way Dalton approaches Bond, and that he's got backup plans in his back of his head. Then they don't just feel like sort of
blasé.
Yeah, or just sort of fly by night.
Right.
He knows if this doesn't work, he can do A, B, or C now. Yeah. Whereas when I feel like watching a Roger Moore movie, it's more spontaneous. Well, just jump off the bridge, like it's and hope for the best kind of thing. But because Roger, it's like almost like you said, it's that character piece. It's almost like Roger Moore's Bond knows he's never gonna die. Like nothing bad can come to him. Well, because he does a lot of outlandish stuff, really. Whereas in this case, it's more factual. Okay, if this screws up, I'm going to have to do this, or that. Because he even says, right, don't put him in the trunk. They'll look in the trunk right away.
Trunks. Yeah.
So all of that stuff, the plan is in his head. And if that plan starts to go awry halfway through, he's still got another plan in his mind of what he could try to do. And it could ultimately fail, but it's not just, I don't know, fly by the seat of your pants. Turning. Yeah, it's not just, it'll just work out. It'll work itself out. No, it doesn't work that way.
I kind of find it hard to pin down any of the other Bonds that do that. Maybe.
Yeah, Craig's pretty spontaneous.
Yeah, because there might be flickers and glimmers of hope of that in Craig's stuff, but it's a lot of, it's instinctual as well, but it is like a rabid dog, instinctual at times.
Yeah, Connery somewhat does, because and even to some degree Moore's is too, but it's that reliance on the gadgets.
Yeah.
That really gets him out of the pickles all the time, or gets him where he needs to be, kind of thing. Connery has it. I'm trying to pinpoint like a really effective place in one of the Connery films where he does that, but none are like coming right to mind immediately. But I think in Thunderball he's kind of got a bit of that sense. Because he utilizes Domino, he utilizes what's the other, the Spectre agent, the female Spectre agent.
Oh, what is her name? Shoot.
But he gets in the car with her, right? And he knows she's trying to manipulate him, but he's manipulating her just as much. So I think Thunderball, there's quite a few moments of that, manipulating Largo, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Because this movie has a lot of quote unquote manipulation and a lot of sort of, I don't know, backstabbing and twisted. This plot is a mess, honestly. It goes from one place to the other, and it's like, we're actually going to do this instead. And it's still like realistic. It's not like totally outlandish, but it's still really like, it gives your head a spin, because you're thinking one thing, and then it's like,
well, because they do present it like, Koskov's, we got him, he's gonna help us, and then he gives you information, and then all of a sudden he gets plucked out by somebody outdoes Bond. He does the Bond bit, but instead it's the good old the good guys taking the beating with Necros,
Yeah,
which is kind of a cool name.
it
But
is a pretty cool name. I can't be remiss though to not name one of my favorite characters in this movie, and that is the engineer. I'm probably gonna mispronounce. Is it Rosika? Rosita?
or like Rosca, or
Yeah, Rosca, whatever her name
yeah,
is. She's one of my favorite characters in this movie. Just because she has such a short bit part, but she plays it so well. It's
so
so
out of
goofy.
place.
It's out of place, but
It is so
I just
goofy.
like her sort of, willing to do whatever it takes to get the guy out kind of thing, essentially. And she knows that this is going to rumble, the whole system is going to set off, like, what does she say? Light it up like a Christmas tree or something, she says.
Right.
And so she knows she's going to have to do something really big to distract the main engineer or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I just find it funny. And she's doing like the big thumbs up and stuff. It's just so silly.
It's another kind of one of those silly quirks that you're like,
Yeah.
this seems tonally.
But I don't know why it just, for me, it just, even though it shouldn't fit, it just makes me laugh because it's so dumb, because everything's quite serious moving up to this point.
Right.
And it's like, oh, here's our little sprinkle of comedy into this whole very serious situation.
Hmm. Yeah, that's
Q plays into it a bit too.
yeah, yeah. I think the Q parts are the other silly parts. Like I think of the dude falling into the couch and he just kind of sits back on, sits on it.
I can't forget about
later in the film.
The literal ghetto blaster.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah.
I think that's a pretty clever joke.
It was just kind of like, wow. Yeah, like, okay. Like, I mean, I wish boom boxes were called that. That'd been pretty. That would have sounded cooler.
Yeah, it sounds pretty cool.
Boombox sounds kind of like somebody from the 20s made it.
Yeah. While dancing on the top of a flagpole, or
True, right?
But now we're jumping all over. But I think we probably can jump all over. Like, honestly, this movie has a good flow. I find for me, the first 70% of the movie is really quite enjoyable. It's tightly filmed. It's got the plot, even though there's parts where you're just kind of like, huh? Who's
it's a bit more
about
cloak
who
and
now?
dagger. Yeah, it's a bit more cloak and dagger.
And then once you get to Afghanistan, it's kind of like, eh? Like it's quite a shift in everything that's come before it.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, it turns back into a Bond movie.
Well, it plays really heavy into the spy stuff, I think, for the first 70% or so.
Right.
Because Bond he's trying to fool Kara, right? Like he's manipulating her by saying that what does she keep calling him? Is it, she only calls him Grigori or something, right? Like it's almost like a pet name she has for him.
Well, it's just his first name.
It is, but she almost speaks of it like it's a pet name. The way she says it, like it is so lovingly.
Affectionate.
Yeah, like it's very affectionate. And he's totally just trying to manipulate the situation to get as close as possible to him as quickly as possible. Because Bond figures stuff out pretty quickly, actually.
Well, yes and no. He doesn't know exactly.
No, but he's suspecting that something's off.
He's suspecting something because when M gives him the mission, he doesn't which is kind of a neat interaction between the two. M's basically wanting him to assassinate the Russian general Pushkin. I mean, that's pretty much it, right? So, like, he wants to assassinate him because Koskov has given them this information saying that Pushkin's about to do something.
Right.
And he's the one that's pressing on him. But then when Koskov gets plucked away from him, they're all under the impression that it is the Russians that have somehow done this.
They've duped them.
They duped him.
Yeah.
But not in the sense of, Koskov was just kind of dicking around on him. No, they think that Pushkin's done something.
Right.
And they need to put him to it. But Bond's like, something doesn't add up with this. Pushkin, like, this doesn't seem like a thing that Pushkin would do. Like, something's up.
Right.
But M's like, no, do your job. or or I'll get 008
Yeah,
to he'll follow
threatens him.
orders.
Right.
Yeah.
He doesn't follow instinct or whatever he
Right.
throws back at him.
Mm.
Yep.
And Bond's like, well, no, time, just hold it.
Time out.
I'll do your job. I'll do the dirty work. But I don't agree with it. And then that's when he starts to, he gets Moneypenny to look into figuring out who the sniper was because they hadn't been able to find any information. So instead of going the sniper route, he recognized that this is the cellist from the performance. So it's like, hey, find out who that is, and then go that route. So
isn't Moneypenny really weirdly played in this movie? She doesn't feel traditional, and that's fine. But they really use her like at a joke's expense, kind of, because she gets like a butt slap, which feels out of place. She
doesn't have. Yeah, I mean,
she's like a Barry Manilow collection. It just feels weird. She doesn't feel. She's competent, obviously, because she helps Bond get onto the next part of the trail, which is great. Like Moneypenny's usually just there for a quick double entendre or joke or whatever.
Mm-hmm. But there, it was just kind of this playful back and forth a lot of times.
Yeah.
Here, it does come off a lot more demeaning.
Yeah, the first time at least. The second time, not so much. Still, but like because it's a little more business, I guess. In the second time they interact. But the first one just because he like puts her glasses back on, and so it just feels a bit weird. It just doesn't really feel like Moneypenny is given her due here at all.
Right.
And even when she gets the information, you're still feeling the effects of that first interaction. That, yeah, like she's kind of really a second rate, within all of the grand scheme of things. She's not that important, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it is unfortunate because it's one of the elements that doesn't really get as explored. And it's like, hey, how does Bond get all these things set up? Oh, it's because people like Moneypenny. They're the ones doing the job of making all the phone calls, setting up.
They're doing all the dirty work, the behind the scenes.
Yeah. And so I'm not saying that, showing that for like 15 minutes would be exciting.
No.
It's not for anything. It's just, it's an unfortunate thing that kind of happens. The characters that do that neat plotting out or paving the avenues for these other characters. They just sort of, they get the abuse.
Yeah, for sure. But what about some of these other characters? Like up to let's look at this from the first minute right up until before we get to Afghanistan.
Okay.
Because like I said, I don't know if you agree, but I feel like there's a massive shift once it gets to Afghanistan. It turns into an 80s action movie, basically.
It feels like they were like, oh, we're here and it's already an hour and 35 minutes or so. Shoot.
Well, I think you just put it in a nutshell. Shoot a bunch of guns.
Right.
Shoot guns, throw bombs, do whatever.
Get
Wake
wild.
Up the audience.
Get wild and tough.
Yeah.
But I would say it really, once they introduce the element of the weapons dealer, Whitaker. Yeah. It starts to, like a top that's spun, it starts to do that wobble. Yeah. And then as it goes along, it wobbles harder and harder and harder. Yeah, I'd agree with your assessment on that. That, for a very sizable chunk of the movie is really doing good work, good body shots. And then all of a sudden it starts throwing haymakers.
And none are landing.
They're just tiring themselves out. Soda Popinski just kind of whoop, whoop.
Yeah, maybe. Well, the Whitaker character, I won't spend too much time on it. It's funny that actor shows up, once the Brosnan era starts. But he's got a bit of an interesting quirk, right? He's kind of interested in historical figures, right?
He almost makes me think of like if Patton was a weapons dealer, just because of the all the different soldiers of different times and stuff that are like. And Patton was that loop-de-loop.
Oh,
like he, if I remember correctly, he believed he was like a reincarnated like Roman soldier.
Oh wow!
Kind of. Oh yeah. Like
hence the need for psychological testing in the military.
He had some very interesting quirks. Like
maybe that's it then. Maybe he was basing on. But it's a kind of fun little quirk, right? That he cares about historical battles, historical generals or leaders of military, and it's a kind of a realistic quirk too. It's not just I have a claw hand or something, right? Like, I like those things. I do. They're fun.
Right.
But obviously leaning back more into this idea of, okay, yeah, he's someone you can realistically believe as a villain. Like he's an arms dealer, and he's not a good person for being an arms dealer. Although I will say it's ridiculous. Like Bond is supposed to be this expert marksman, and he's shooting a tiny shield on a
right, shoot him in the
shoot him in the kneecap first,
kneecaps or something. Yeah. I mean, I know that's a bit of a harder hit, so it's kind of that's part of it there.
Anyways, like so, and he obviously has his place in the movie. He's not in the movie a ton.
No, he's he gets he's sprinkled in,
and Pushkin really puts him in his place.
Right.
That is a good scene. Just how he's really trying to puff out his chest, and you can't break our deal. And this, and it's like you're a military flunky. Like you.
Yeah, I actually like the Pushkin character a lot, because this is a nice pointed to see of like, oh, here's a Russian military character, and then Bond, British spy character, who are really getting along very well. It's nice to see.
He's like the character. What is the name of the guy that's in Goldeneye and The World Is Not Enough?
Oh,
that Russian, arms dealer or whatever. There's some similarities.
Is it like a Vladimir or
something? I can't remember. The name is escaping me. We'll get to Goldeneye at some point, anyways. But
at some point,
and all I remember from that is his wife is singing. What's the song she's singing? She's singing a famous song,
or like Michigan or something.
Something like that.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Koskov or something like that. No, Koskov's in this movie. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah. It doesn't matter, but there's kind of a similar parallel that comes down the line once the Brosnan era starts, and this character is similar with John Rhys Davies playing Pushkin in this, who would go on to play Sala one more time in the Indiana Jones trilogy, at the time trilogy, and plays nothing alike this character he plays in this. But they have a really great interaction, though, him and Dalton, when they're in that hotel room. That's a really intense scene.
Yeah, it's because at this point,
there's no fooling around there.
Well, because at that point, Saunders is dead by forceful,
crushed by a glass door, I guess.
Right. And so it makes me kind of wonder if people saw that and then they got kind of freaked out by automated doors for a little bit.
Maybe.
I still get creeped out with like elevators and stuff just because I'm always afraid of them, like
when they jolt
decoupling or something as you're leaving them or entering them.
You watch Die Hard one too many times or something.
Oh yeah. Just that. No, thank you. But that's a pretty raw scene, because he's stripped down Pushkin's lover.
Well, it's his wife, I thought.
Is it his wife?
Yeah, because later on we get the whole, fake death cop out scene, right? Right. I'm pretty sure it's his wife.
Okay. But yeah, he's got her like, has her stripped down and stuff to what's the word I'm looking for? To like surprise the guard that pops in there, check to make sure he's all right and stuff, and then he's like, get back, go get dressed or whatever, and he's still like, it leaves you at a pretty, like, it leaves at the scene changes.
Right.
Because Bond's like, I need this information, and Pushkin's like, well, guess you're gonna have to kill me.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it cuts, and you're like, oh, Pushkin, my boy, no. And then it cuts in a weird way where it's like, because of how it's cut, you're like, yeah, that's obviously not going to happen, because it jumps to the next scene where he's at a dinner party.
It jumps too fast.
There's not, if there was something to fill that gap, I think it would have been a little bit better, but
maybe like a scene with Necros doing something like nefarious, lurking around or something. That guy, man, they knew they couldn't get Dolph back because of his success in Rocky IV, so they just went and got another guy who looked, this guy's a little bit more of a slim, but he looks good. Incredibly, yeah, he looks amazing, right? Like his whole like six pack, and he looks really tall. But Dolph looked too what's the word? I don't know, flustered, I guess, in the previous film. There, we'll just get somebody who actually looks intimidating, but is basically Dolph Lundgren. And maybe they didn't sit down and watch Rocky IV at that point, or they had seen it and they're like, oh, he's too expensive now. Because this character looks a lot like Dolph Lundgren, or just with the slick back hair or whatever, and is quite intimidating. He's a pretty mean looking dude.
Well, but he
likes to kill people with a Walkman.
Yeah, right. Walkman
headphones.
Which is a bit silly.
It is definitely a bit silly.
But the thing about him too is that he's like your bad Bond. And I kind of like that. He's, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. He's a henchman who doesn't really have a gimmick. Kind of.
Well, other than the headphone thing.
Well, yeah, but I mean, in the sense of like, he does other things other than that. So it's not like he's just, it's the headphones. I got my Walkman.
I think he kills what, 2 people?
He's got the exploding milk.
Yeah, that's cool.
That was actually really cool. It's like, that's actually a really clever idea.
Well, yeah, because at first you're thinking, oh, whatever, he's just portraying the milkman or whatever.
It's gonna sour you, bastard.
But then, the first time he throws that, you're thinking, okay, is he just using that as a distraction or something? And then when it blows up, like, whoa, that's actually actually pretty useful and kind of credible. Like, you could sneak in the milk. They're not going to check the milk,
right?
So it's like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Real quick, jump back before I forget. I love the very subtle touch of the tuxedo at the beginning of the film, after the opening song and everything.
Yeah.
Where Dalton changes it and he just like folds it over and it goes all black, and it's just that little, almost like a uniform sort of thing to cloak the whites of the tuxedo. It's just something about it. I was like, I really liked how that looked.
Right.
And it's just a really subtle sort of quick movement here and here, and then boom, it's like, more of that, please. Just please.
Yeah.
I'm asking nicely. More of that, please.
Yeah. There are 2 elements here that I'd like to jump in if you don't mind.
Sure.
So one is, Kara. We haven't talked about Kara, so I want to put her as the second point. But the first is the car. The car is kind of given a pretty good spotlight in this movie.
Yeah, until it gets self-destructed.
Yeah, but still.
But not only that, it also actually serves as a car, which is kind of a novel thing.
But it turns into a jet ski at some point too, basically.
Right.
But it's cool, like, and they use a lot of gimmicks in the car, and even though it's a lot, like we just came off of Die Another Day, which pretty much threw every single thing you could think of that's been in a previous Bond movie into the car.
Mm-hmm.
This has quite a few tricks up its sleeve, and they're all used, right? There's quite a bit going on with this car.
Right.
But it feels fun, and at the time it probably was fairly fresh too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. It doesn't. It's good that it's had that last little bit with the jet ski, because if it went any further, it probably would have overstayed itself. But it knew to be like, okay, we sunk somebody by having the ridiculous. Let's cut the ice with the
blew
rim.
out the tire, yeah.
Right, and then okay, jet ski, nitro yourself over that. Okay, all right, okay, you're good.
Well, I like how he lasers the police car too. And that kind of goes back to some of the Moore stuff too, right? Remember Live and Let Die, right? The top of the bus gets smashed off, and it was kind of a similar type gag. But it was kind of fun. It's like, oh, this car's got lots going on, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. Right? It's just sort of, it's just enough to be a cool car, cool gimmicks. Moving on to now sledding on a cello.
Yeah, cello case, which is
I don't hate it. I should, but I don't hate it.
Well, because then it ends. It's ridiculous that they're being chased, and they're the guards at the gate are just
let them go through.
Yeah, they're just
show your passports.
Yeah, show the passport. We don't have anything to claim except for the cello.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little. That feels like Moore. Somehow Moore's fingers are seeped into this film, and
the shadow of Moore.
The shadow of Moore.
That should have been that should be the title of the 26th Bond movie. The shadow of Moore.
Oh no. But yeah, it's the cello bit's a bit silly.
Sure.
I'm not as big of a fan of it.
I don't love it, but I should hate it more than I do for some reason. I don't know why.
I don't like it. I'm just like, okay, all right. Like, if they just weren't being chased as much as they were, I might have been okay with it. But as
it's definitely a carryover though, because even thinking of Man with the Golden Gun, right, with the gondola. That's suddenly driving down the side of the road or whatever. So it's definitely in that vein for sure. But maybe in my mind, because this movie doesn't have so many over the top things up to that point, it just kind of made me laugh because it's somewhat so out of place. It's so silly. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the Moore movies, you're expecting it to happen. You're expecting several silly things to pop up.
Yeah.
And they often do before you get a big, car chase that has something really obnoxious happen, like the car flip.
Tarzan.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Whereas here, it's just, it's so silly. You're thinking, okay, why not? I guess let's just break up the seriousness. I don't know.
Of levity.
Yeah, I guess. I can't put it any other way, but it doesn't bother me as much as I know it probably should, based in the context of how everything has gone up to that point.
Mm.
But anyways, Kara, like I think we'd be remiss to forget at least mentioning something about this character.
Oh, for sure. They're not the protagonist, they're the deuteronomist or something. What's the secondary protagonist kind of thing?
Yeah, name title's not coming to me, but
yeah. So there's much like the Living Daylights theme song. There are parts where I'm kind of like, I don't mind her so much, and then there are parts I'm like, I really don't know what Bond sees in you, kind of thing. Because there's certain parts where like she will be very what's the word I want to use? Not forward, but initiative. Like, okay, I'm not hanging around. I know, want to talk about the Afghanistan stuff
Right.
later, but like, she's like, no, I'm going in.
Right.
Like, and I like that aspect, or how they will kind of start syncing up and, kind of be like, hey, I can't really say it, but I'm gonna think it. And they're like, oh, hey, I think it too. I got it. I like that. I like that element with her, and I like that she basically the one thing I love the line is that she's when their Bond is getting her out of Czechoslovakia.
I know which part you're talking about.
Yeah, and she's like, get the I need my cello, and he's like, no, you don't need a cello. And
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. And then it cuts to getting the cello, and it's just like, ugh.
And there's a big music shift there and everything.
Well, no, but after that, when they're getting out of the car to like abandon it and stuff, and he's like, good thing I made you get this cello.
This cello, yeah.
It's just like, yes, like it was kind of like, that's perfect. Like, you don't need some super hammy thing. Like, that's just to me, that I love that. It's just such a
that part's fun.
That is something I would say. Like, good thing that is something my dad would say.
But I like the as you said, it does a really hard cut, and then suddenly it's her getting into the car with the cello and how pissed off he looks. But it plays. If I remember, I'm pretty sure it plays the Living Daylights theme again at that moment, because it plays a much slower tone song, but just how mad he looks.
He's so mad.
He is not happy, and then she's having a hard time shoving it into the backseat. So again, a bit of the physical comedy but it works there because it's so out of place with this Bond. Just he's so calculating. And so for him to have this 180 of fine, like is actually kind of funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's I don't really like, I'm not too keen on I don't know how to put it. Like, there's just something up with the romance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the romance between the two is a little. I mean, that's not a surprise, but yeah, it's
not as organic as it could be.
Right.
I chalk it up to the Bond he's playing a role up until they get to the not the carnival. Oh, is it a carnival? I guess it's carnival, right? Like it's a carnival type place.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's hard to suddenly switch your belief to, they're actually falling in love.
Right.
Because it's so abrupt, right? She gets scared by the skeleton thing and hugs him, and then it's like, I guess that's supposed to be a bit of a moment. Well, it's supposed to be, right? Like his response and reaction is a bit of a moment. But Dalton plays Bond so coldly that it's hard
the warmth is a little
to some degree.
But in the same hand, this is a character that buries themselves. I know I just phrased it that way. Buries himself into women, drink, and everything to detach himself away from what he doesn't like about himself.
Right. But on that note, I like that about this movie. He's not just, some of the Roger Moore movies, 3, 4 ladies come across that this movie, other than that first sort of blip where he parachutes in, and it's just sort of seems to be more of a tongue-in-cheek, like, oh, it's Bond and this is what Bond does. We don't get that here, and it's unfortunate that we don't get it closer to being something like a Tracy and Bond from Her Majesty's or a Vesper and Bond in Casino Royale. That just the chemistry's not quite there in some parts. There's parts where you kind of feel it.
There's a mirthfulness that there isn't really with some of the other Bonds. There's some mirth there that it's just like in Afghanistan, like where she calls him a horse's ass.
Yeah, yeah, like that's actually a pretty decent scene. That you definitely do get some chemistry there, but and even like when they escape from the prison and stuff, right? And how silly she's so naive, this character. And actually, I don't mind that. I've heard a lot of people say that they can't stand that about this character, but I feel that's the point. She's been manipulated a lot,
Right.
and she has no idea of what the world is actually like around her, and that's why she'll just believe what anyone tells her. Oh, Bond is actually a British agent, and he's actually really bad. Versus, oh, Gorgie's he's actually a double agent, right? He said he was going to defect to help us, but he's really not.
Right.
And that's why he set you up to, fake shoot him or whatever. And so she's just so easily manipulated, and I think that's an important trait for her, actually. And that's even the scene where she's trying to shout at Bond and he's on the plane. Like, of course he can't hear her, right? Like, it's so obvious, but that, and some people are like, oh, that's just bad writing. It's like, no, I think, again, that plays into her being naive. She's just really doesn't know the world, and she thinks things that she wants to happen, but doesn't really think them through because they're logic. Like, she just thinks that they're going to happen.
There are a lot of those people walking the earth right now.
Well, there you go. So,
like, man, woman, or anything in between. It's just there are a lot of people who are that kind of naive, where they just don't.
And unfortunately, perhaps probably do not believe them to be so.
Well, yeah, exactly. Where it's just and it's hard. I mean, it's hard to be able to kind of, step beside yourself and then be able to, like, I might be a bit of an idiot.
Anyway, so this character did grow on me as the film went on, and I see there's definitely not as much chemistry as I would like necessarily between the two as actors. However, I still really like the off play that they have with each other, and Bond trying to warm up, but he almost kind of can't. And I feel like that's part of Dalton's take on the character.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that they're romantically involved, but it's not as, I don't know. You think of like a Vesper and Bond, right? That whole trajectory looks very different than this. And obviously there's a ripple effect of that. That's right. By design. And of course, just those actors seem to have a genuine, really strong chemistry. But it's okay here that they don't. And I still like both characters despite that, and the way they work and function in the movie despite that.
Yeah, because even though she is naive, she's not. Another point is there when Bond is struggling when they're in the prison,
right? And
she just sort of stands there for a moment,
right?
And then she's like, "Oh no, I need to be doing something."
Right. It's the guy with the bucket,
right? Yeah, just there's that moment of needing to process. She's not a complete, like, withering violet where if the sun shines on her just the wrong way, she's gonna melt away kind of thing. Yeah, she has her own strengths, and initiative to do things, whether that's convince Bond to bring the cello, or to basically be like, I'm going in there anyways. I'm not going to stand by the sidelines anymore here. Like, there's at least something there that's not just, "I'll save me."
Right.
Help me.
She doesn't want Bond to get that heart transplant. The random heart transplant thing that comes out of nowhere.
Well, because it's just masking the diamonds.
I know, but still, it's just, what does it say? Handle like eggs or something it says on the crate? Something to that effect. It's just funny that you get this pumping heart surrounded by diamonds. Just why not, right?
Right.
But I don't have anything other than some of the Afghanistan section that I'd like to jump in. If you have anything else you wanted to clear first.
Let's see. The gadget of the whistle.
Oh, yeah.
Is not my favorite thing.
Okay.
It's not.
It's certainly not as hokey as some of the other stuff.
No, it's just, I think maybe because it is such a unimpressionable thing, where it's like, oh, just whistle that, but it also makes you fearful of what if you just like go into I guess because of my experiences of just different parts in Japan or so, where across the street you might hear Sakura playing. Like for me, Sakura or something of that sort is similar to Rule Britannia. What if you just randomly hear Rule Britannia when you head into the convenience store?
You'd be exploding on Shibuya Crossing or something.
Well, no, it would be the gas. The gas.
Oh, the gas, yeah.
Knockout gas, or wolf whistle. You walk down the street, some goober wolf whistles at some poor woman just trying to cross the street or something, and all of a sudden 30 people are dead because
local gaijin shuts down Shibuya Crossing for 18 hours.
Oh no.
Traces of scented gas appear to be leaking from his keys.
So
it'd be a pretty funny sight, though. But so I like the simplicity of the gadget, though. It's not as outlandish of like whatever rocket launcher coming out of a watch or something like that. It's like
you said, a lot of the other gadgets are in the car kind of thing. So
yeah, more or less. So yeah, but I do like actually one point, and it just transitions into the Afghanistan piece. One is, well, first Felix. I don't know what that was all about. It's just shoehorned in there as well. And then they change actors for the next one anyways. They change back to the actor from Live and Let Die, which is really bizarre.
I think it was to just to show that this isn't like what Bond said in the thing. It's like, oh, we seem to be working on the same case from two different ends. Let's let's talk shop and
drink Jim Beam.
Yeah,
or whatever they were having.
Right.
Yeah. But the one guard, the muscular guard that Bond ends up having the fight with in the green shirt, the Russian guard. Mm-hmm. I love the scene where he knocks Bond down. He's like, "I did not tell you to get down." And then when he starts picking him, then he hits him. I did not tell you to get down. I like that. I thought that was pretty fun.
That would, yeah, that's somebody who.
An abuse of power or what?
Well, no, I'm saying like that's somebody who either knew somebody who's that kind of dickhead or was like.
But it's just funny.
That guy just seemed to be just reveling and doing it.
Oh, he was having a good old time doing it. It was pretty funny though, and he almost takes a receipt poker right to the eye. That's pretty. Thankfully, we didn't go that far into it, but
gruesome. No, from like the
scrap
fight, is it like his arm gets broken or something when they shut the door,
something like that. Yeah,
the jail cell door on him
after he gets gassed.
Yeah, yeah.
The little puff that comes out. But yeah, that little jail sequence is actually kind of a fun little turning point before it gets really out of hand, kind of thing. Like it's
right where they're both trying to escape, and then she's kind of like do and like, hey, over here.
Well, she has the funny line of, "Oh, we what did she say? Something we escaped the jail or something," and he's like, "Kara, we're in the middle of Afghanistan on a Russian base."
A little bit more there.
Let's put this back into perspective here. Like, I don't think we're sneaking out of here, unscathed. But I like that scene, and I also like the who seems to be a random prisoner at the time, who seems to also be reveling in these Russian guards getting a beat down.
And his keys being tossed to him.
Yeah. Who that actor is also the actor from True Lies, who plays the terrorist in True Lies, the main terrorist.
I don't think I've ever seen True Lies.
Oh, okay.
I'll be honest.
It's a fun movie.
I remember the gun scene just because I thought it was
the machine gun. Yeah, that is pretty silly, but
yeah,
it's kind of a James Bond spoof to some degree.
Okay.
Sort of. Not fully, but sort of. Anyways, but he plays the main villain in that as well.
Gotcha.
And to this day, my friend, or the Swordfish, we still to this day yell at each other, "Who's taking the key?" Because I can't explain the scene without kind of ruining it to you, but there's a really important scene where he's yelling at everybody about who's taking this key. Mm-hmm. And so there's often, yelling, "Who's taking the key?" Like if you can't find something, you're just like, "Who's taking the key?" But it's that actor.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the same actor. Anyways, Afghanistan is just, I feel like it's an extension of Rambo 3. Like it's just or vice versa. Like it's just, there's some Russians.
Beautiful shots.
I think it's Morocco that they filmed that in.
Right. But I'm saying just some beautiful shots. That's, the mountain, the snow-capped mountains off in the distance and stuff.
But I mean, it's a fun scene, but it's chaotic, it's silly, it's like Bond can't get a plane to get off the holding blocks.
I wouldn't say that was like a comedy thing.
No, I know it's
that
not.
Was more of like a tension thing.
But it's just more the chaos of like that's going on while this character. Oh, why am I forgetting that character?
Cameron Shaw.
Thank you. So Shaw is now chasing people down with a. What is that? The scoop, right? The little
2 scoops of raisins.
Yes, 2 scoops of raisins in every Kellogg's raisin brand.
Right.
But like it's so chaotic. There's all this stuff that just starts happening. Explosions. Bond finds out that opium's being traded.
Right, and he just he cuts open into it, and then he just licks it. He's like, "Yep, that's opium. Pure opium."
And they're like, "Oh, that's not really that bad because the Russians are worse." And it's like, oh, so we're just turning a blind eye to one bad thing because you think this is worse, basically?
Well, I mean, yeah.
I guess. Well,
simple opium trade.
They didn't have the foresight to know, the Afghanistan history was going to go down a certain route. So,
it's just simple opium, bro.
Yeah. But they play it off as that, right? They're just like, right. I need stuff. So I trade this. So it's like, okay, I guess on one hand, it's like stealing a loaf of bread to feed your family, I guess, right? You can look at it that way.
That's some Jean Valjean thinking.
But it definitely gets kind of crazy. Not as Casino Royale 67 crazy, but it gets pretty wild, and it's kind of hard to follow everything that's going on because there's just lots of guns and explosions. And
it is action-packed.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's fun enough to watch. But then we get the plane sequence. I don't know if you have anything to fill in there. I really don't. Like it's just
it is just a mess, and it will start. Yeah, it's like they saw. Oh crap, we're like an hour and a half into this, and we try to average about 2 hours and 10 minutes. So roll film.
Go for it.
Right.
That's a bit of a beautiful mess in a way.
It is chaotic, and to have, I mean, it's a pretty common thing to be like, oh, the guy you saved is part of this other thing, but you'll have to do something for him before he can do anything for you. That's a pretty common trope, stories in general and stuff. But beyond that, the
Koskov. What? Like what? Like what?
Yeah,
that's a pretty significant explosion.
Yeah, he threw up the heat shields real quick.
Yeah, and he just sits there with a little, I don't know, dust scuff on his cheek. like he should be dead.
I am charred.
That is a massive explosion.
Right. So you have that, what was I going to say? I kind of like the infiltration back in.
Like in the back of the truck?
Right, going in the back of the truck and then getting into the plane and stuff. Where I like that because it slows everything down just enough to be like, okay, you just escaped. Now you're coming back in real quick, and then all mayhem breaks loose and stuff.
Right,
Like,
right,
okay.
right.
All
Yeah,
right.
it's not just he's going to sneak off or what was that Bond? No, it's like they know it's him right away, right? And it turns into this whole.
And he just unloads. It's like, all right.
Yeah.
And then that's
well,
the cue.
that's when you should have had the Solid Snake sound like immediately, right? Again, Kojima probably inspired by this, possibly, because that's what it is. It's exactly what it is. Like, what was that?
Huh? Yeah, and then, they're like, oh, and then see, Bond grabs the gun and starts unloading.
Off we go.
And I kind of like that. It's not just like he's not tagging people. He isn't dead-eyeing people from space or anything like that. He's just like, okay, unload,
right,
kind of thing. So, and he has set a timer for a bomb to blow up the opium that he is now on a plane for that he really can't leave.
Which is earlier he was fine with trading, but then decided, maybe drugs are bad after all.
Well, I think part of it was to get that, but also get Costco.
Well, is the whole he wants to break the money chain basically,
right,
so that it doesn't have any sort of doesn't have drugs, doesn't have the money, has nothing in the end, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. So. Well, what do you think about the whole like chasing down the plane and the jeeps and?
It was okay.
I did find that
I found the not necessarily the fight itself, but the stuntman that was on the net there in the plane. Oh my god, he nearly cracked his skull open on the bottom of that little lip of the plane. It's just like, my soul clenched.
It's a cool stunt.
My god. It's cool.
I wonder if those are the same guys who ended up doing like the Octopussy stuff, or if they're different guys.
So.
Like I'm just thinking, because skydivers, they're usually very highly trained and they're probably not easy to come by. So
you're not finding them.
I'm wondering if they're the same stunt people.
There.
But is it Uncharted that has something similar? Like I remember seeing something like hanging out of the plane. One of those games.
I think 2 does something like that. Where you're hanging out.
It's really a callback to this sequence, seemingly. Mm-hmm. But it's a cool, and looks fairly brutal, right? Like it's not just like swinging wildly, like they're trying to hang on while
it's kind of
push each other
echoes
off.
of that Octopussy fight.
Kind of.
Where it's
kind
not
of.
Tons going on, but it makes sense because they're holding onto a net.
Yeah, flying at 300 kilometers an hour or something like that. Right. Like it's not going to be easy to actually do much. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it kind of feels as realistic as it's probably going to, that they're basically just trying to push each other off, and there's a few punches here and there, and then Necros pulls out the knife, which again would make sense, right? Just try to stab a Bond maybe in the knee or something, right? To, injure him enough that he might loosen his grip or something. So, I think it's pretty good. The only part I don't really like is the boot thing, just because it's sort of like...
It's a little weird.
Like, why is he only holding the boot? Why couldn't he just grab the netting again?
Just grab the net, yeah. Go on, dude.
Yeah, it's just kind of a bit silly that... Like, because if it was really quick and the boot flew off because he was grabbing him, but it's delayed because he's going to cut the laces... So it's a little too long, like too much time is kind of passing for you to think, why would he just grab the net while he's doing that? Right. If it was really quick and you just saw like a split second of he grabs the boot and Bond is able to get the boot, okay, sure. But it's kind of delayed. Kind of reminds me in Tomorrow Never Dies, right? When he's got the vest. Kind of a similar type debacle that Bond is in. So but yeah, I like that sequence. I think it looks cool. It's a really daring type stunt, and more realistic than the Octopussy one, really, right? Like if you're hanging on a net, which is not going to be safe, I think the realistic time frame of you being able to hang on that net versus a plane is probably long. And plus, plus they're at the back of the plane, right? Like, so the wind is coming towards it, but there's still the back of the plane is probably blocking some of the wind at least, whereas in Octopussy they're taking the full brunt of everything, and it's just it's really like, wow, okay. It's fun, like I said, we enjoy it. Like, it's just fun because it's so wacky. But this is again trying to go back to maybe scaling it of, okay, yes, we want this to be an adventure. It's still supposed to be a cinematic experience, but some level of possibility.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And yet, I kind of also like how after he gets out, or gets back into the plane, that there's still more trouble, because all of a sudden he hears the thing ticking, and he's like, oh shit, which one is it? This one. Nope, not this one. I kind of like that.
Wasn't that the exact same problem in Octopussy?
Yeah, but I still like it. I don't care.
I do too. I'm pretty sure it's the exact same beat.
So.
Yep, and then we get a pretty fancy explosion. We get the old Jeep flying out of the back of the plane.
Which was pretty cool.
I would say that was better than the Die Another Day one with the helicopter.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least it's silly. Like, it's probably unlikely, but at least it I don't know, it was executed better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because at least you can sort of be like, okay, this is slightly more plausible.
Plus, it looked like it was practical. I think they practically did that. So, whereas Die Another Day, that was obviously a CG helicopter.
Right. Trying to do that with the helicopter. Yeah, we're totally gonna.
Oh gosh, can you imagine if somebody could actually pull that off? That'd be pretty amazing.
They would be pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, pretty unbelievable if they could.
Right.
But, yeah, and then we get the scene with Whitaker, which it's fine. It's a little shoehorned as well, in just to kind of be like, we got to close up that one loose end,
right?
More or less, and
it is nice that Pushkin comes in, to be like, okay, playtime's over.
Yep.
And it not only you have him, you have Bond, him, and Felix. So they all kind of come together to work to put the weapons dealer down, which is nice. I'm all for
it. Yep. And then kind of gets wrapped up. And do you think that Koskov is killed? Because remember he says, send him home in a diplomatic bag.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that means kill him and send him home in a body bag. Does it mean make his life a living hell on the way back home? Does it mean put him in an airbag mail, or airmail bag? Sorry, he'll just cut out like Teehee. I don't know. Like, what's implied there? Do you have any idea?
I was under the impression that he was going to kill him.
No, okay.
But maybe that was just me speaking what I wanted to happen.
And I thought the opposite. I thought maybe he just meant he's going to turn his life into a living hell and put him in a gulag or something.
Not possible. I will say I did like the conniving Koskov at the end. Oh, I'm so thankful.
Yeah. The actor does a good job, right? He does a good job.
Yeah.
And it's funny, isn't he really a mirror parallel of Kara? So she's the innocent side of that coin and will believe anything, and he's the manipulative side of that coin and tries to make people believe everything.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. That kind of comes full circle, like as you see it all the way through, and then at the end that he's caught in his lie and she's more confident and more capable.
Mm-hmm.
Again, all these people are like, Kara's a bad character. It's like you just have to look at all of the pieces that fit. For me at least, it's like you see how those pieces fit, and it's like it kind of helps build a stronger character than might seem as you watch it the first time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, anyways, you get wrapped up with the Bond scene at the end there, just showing up at her
performance
there.
Yep.
Without showing up, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, I would miss it, but you're in here.
Yeah, you did miss it. Maybe he was wearing a mask or something out in the crowd. Who knows? He was wearing a Roger Moore mask. Can you imagine it? That would be amazing.
Oh,
that would be amazing if they did something like that. Or a George Lazenby mask. Have you seen this, man?
Thank merciful God they did not do that. Oh boy.
But no, we get I like the credits song as well. It's so 80s, but I feel like it should play at the end of a Jackie Chan 80s movie or something. Like I don't know why I like it. Again, maybe I shouldn't like it as much as I do to some degree, because it kind of doesn't really fit the whole movie. But I found I really liked it, and I like when it was interspliced into little parts in the movie too. That sort of piano key that they play, whatever the number of notes that they play, but
right.
Yeah, it's different, and I think it helped really put the exclamation point on this is a different Bond now. We're doing something different here.
Yeah. So no, I'd agree with that. It isn't so brief and curt that it's just like, oh, the end. Because they could have right there when he's like, oh, I know of a good, where was that? Where are they going?
Karachi. Pakistan.
Yeah, going to Karachi. Like I don't remember like a good restaurant in Karachi. It doesn't, because you could have cut it right there.
Right.
But no, it gives you this little bit of breathing room for this ending scene and stuff. And I was like, okay, this is nice. It's not, being jettisoned off into or in the sky hook loop thing like in Thunderball and
right. Well, they could have easily done the credits right there. I wouldn't have minded if they did. Like they could have, and it would have.
They could have. It would have been a little bit of a cheeky end in that way.
Yeah, it could have. It wouldn't have been totally horrible, but it's nice that they kind of. I think they knew that they didn't want to fall in some of those traps that they had set, I guess, with the previous Bond outings. Like the opening, right? Where it's just more of its own set piece again. And it does interlace with the rest of the movie in some way. But that whole sniper scene could have been the beginning of the pre-title sequence or whatever. So, and then the same thing here. They could have easily closed up shop with, as you said, Bond saying, oh, we can still make dinner, and driving off in the sunset, and that could have been the end. But they added just a little bit more to, kind of make sure they closed all the loose ends that they felt they needed to.
Right. But yeah, is there anything you want to add to this?
No, just as a second viewing within a year, I had no anticipation that I was going to come around this much on this movie and like it as much as I did.
Okay.
It really surprised me after watching it this second time.
Maybe it just caught you just right.
Something just, maybe right place and right time, I guess. It just was the right movie at that moment to watch. And I don't know if we had watched this early on, if this was one of the earlier picks, I don't know if I'd still have the same feeling or not.
That's a possibility.
Maybe seeing enough of a variety of these movies really kind of gives me a different viewpoint of this one now.
Maybe.
Yeah. How about for you?
Yeah, it was really enjoyable.
I like how you're almost hesitant to.
I'm holding back.
Come around on it.
I actually really like this movie a lot. Like I was very pleasantly surprised. We'll say. Like I was not honestly expecting anything. So yeah, it goes off the rails on the back third. Yeah, I'm not gonna hate. Something unless it's egregiously bad. If it's egregiously bad, where it's just where something happens, or where it just leaves a sour taste in your mouth, you're like, why would you do that?
What if they had put the Tarzan scene with the gondola scene with the sky surfing iceberg scene with the
yeah. So
and they just somehow put them all in there at the last.
Right. Beach Boys playing overtime.
You might actually have to say that is the greatest Bond montage I've ever seen. Timothy Dalton is hands down the greatest Bond now. There's no debate. Well, yeah, you emailed me something, and I thought, oh, interesting. At first you said, oh, I'm going to watch. I know you've been watching the behind the scenes in some of these, or some of the build up or whatever to the movies. And you had said something that kind of perked me up a little bit to be like, oh, okay. Because you said something about how what you just said, you were not anticipating being interested in watching that bit. And then you'd said something like, oh, that was actually informative or something positive. And I thought, interesting. And then you went stone silent for every communication after that. And you said something like, I watched it. It has been watched.
I have thoughts or something.
No, you didn't even put that. You didn't even. I have thoughts makes me imply like, okay, he hates something about this movie. You didn't even say that. You just said, I have watched it. We will talk or something.
Because I watched it when it was late. It was like 1:30 in the morning or something.
I just thought I was like, did he flip flop? Did he really enjoy like the behind the scenes and making of, and now he hates the movie?
No.
You had me thinking.
Okay. Yeah, no, I wasn't intentioned. I was really tired. I was like, it's 1:30 or so in the morning.
Fair enough.
I don't want to type some, oh yeah, I watched it. But yeah, no, I thought it was really good. So let's get into the scores. Do you want to jump into it, or do you want me to start? I think you started the last one.
I think so. I think we're trying to. If it's my pick, I think we're trying to have you.
I think
we're trying to remember to do that, but I don't know if we are consistently.
All right, I'll roll it out there. Boom. It is for me I'm kind of torn between two numbers.
Did you want me to tell you mine?
No.
Because it'll influence that?
No. I'm going to throw this out here. I'm going to say it is a very, very strong 6.
Well, that's my score. I want to go with a 6 as well. So,
okay. So I was
006.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a strong 6. It's a 6 where, like, if you catch me the right way, I might give it a 6.5.
Yep.
Out of 7. That'd be really good. But no, it's a strong, very, very good movie. And this is one that I would be like, hey, don't really show these to people who might be wanting to watch Bond films, because you get this and you might get the wrong impression.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I same thing. I think it's a 6. Yeah, I think you could. There's probably days where I might watch and be like, yeah, it's a 5. But I think now that I've come around on this movie, I don't think I can really go back and be at some point of, it's not that good. I mean, maybe it will. It can happen, right? You can watch a movie 100 times and you can love it 99 and hate it finally on the 100th watch or something. But I think if I don't watch it regularly, I think I'm going to be able to maintain a consistent point of, wow, I really enjoyed coming back to that movie. If I think I'm going to watch it every weekend, yeah, at some point you're going to be like, okay, whatever.
Well, yeah.
But I'm still completely shocked that I could come back to it after X number of years of never seeing it, then watching it last year and be like, yeah, it's fine. It's decent enough. And then watching it now and being like, wow, maybe I just caught more stuff this time and understood more of what's happening. Because like I said, I find that there's a lot of just bait and switch and then flip this, flip that. Bond doesn't know we're talking about him in this scene, even though we know as viewers that he's talking about them in this scene. So there's just a lot of, they just try to, serious is one thing, but trying to put in too much is another. So, but yeah, 6 for sure. 6. Unexpected. And I'm not joking that Dalton moved up the list quick after watching this.
Right.
He was definitely probably second from the bottom.
Oh no.
And he is definitely not second from the bottom anymore.
Yay, go Dalton. Like I said before, yeah, I think I think I think he's my favorite Bond. I have to say, yeah, Timothy Dalton's my favorite Bond. Go Team Dalton.
Awesome.
So.
Well, you're definitely not the only one. Like I said, I was surprised at how many people actually behind the Dalton films.
Okay.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to think that you can change, right? In any given moment, you could 10 years, who knows? Roger Moore might become your favorite.
Oh yeah, totally.
You never know.
I don't know about that one, but yeah, no, absolutely not.
Hey, but he is for some people. He definitely is.
That is fair. That's
some people really love what Roger Moore did, right? Maybe they grew up watching it, or maybe even have
doing
switched.
Something well enough to at least get 7, even though probably should have stuck with 5, but it was doing something right.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Like, at least from financial standpoint, everything definitely was. So, yeah, okay. Well, it is your pick. So,
okay, I'm just gonna go with From Russia with Love.
No, nice. I was thinking you were actually gonna go with You Only Live Twice.
Oh, no,
where I was thinking you were headed, but
I was in 2 different extremes. I was either going to go with From Russia with Love or with Spectre, but
oh wow, those are
that's what it's
the second or the second last.
Yep,
wow.
Yep, I couldn't really sit on.
Wow, that is a big range.
Yeah, I was just like, I don't know. And I was just like, we haven't watched Connery for a little bit, and we did do Skyfall not that long ago, so I figured, you know what, yeah, we'll do From Russia with Love for this next.
Okay. Well, I do know this one does tend to get a lot of praise, and a lot of people do really like this movie. So, and I haven't seen this one in a long time.
Let's go from strength to strength. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go for it.
So, but yeah, any last words?
No, I just think if you're a James Bond fan, it's worth going back to the Dalton films, and just maybe you still might not change your mind, and maybe there's something about Dalton that doesn't, bring out what you anticipate, or sorry, what you interpret Bond as. But I'm very pleasantly surprised, and like you, I really think he did a really good job, and he obviously kind of quote unquote did his homework. Like, you see him in those interviews, and just the way he talks about what he interprets Bond as, and trying to reflect what Ian Fleming's vision is, and beyond, like what Connery did. Because like you said, Connery was able to morph that into a different animal, right? Like he took the base works and then kind of morphed it into the movie version of what Bond would be like. And Fleming kind of went along with that, being like, he really liked the performance and so forth and so forth. And it was really smart to really just, let's pretend none of this stuff has happened, and let's just go back to reading all what Bond is like and really trying to convey that on screen. And I like the interpretation. It's actually something really fresh at the time. And even today, it still feels kind of fresh. So, yeah, and you?
Yeah, it's, like I said, Dalton, #1 fan club. Yeah. But, like you said, it is a fresh, for the longest time, they were kind of spinning their wheels out of the 70s into the 80s. And I think this was a good step to get back into gear, even though it only lasted those 2. Part of that's because the company would go bankrupt.
Right.
And then all that sort of fun stuff happened. Gee, I wonder where else this will plague this series. But which is a shame that, it's a shame that what happened with Dalton's bit, but then at least they were able to keep it going for better and for worse with Craig's stuff. I mean, it makes sense, but anywho, yeah, this is a really good film. If you aren't really a Bond fan, I think this would be the one to go with. Or at least one of them to go with. to give it a go to see what may have been interesting. It's not too hokey. There's at least some levity in there that it's not getting under your skin to be like, oh, this is just being silly for silly's sake all the time. Right. Joy.
But it's not lack of joy, right, either. It's not a joyless romp of, it's got to be a stone cold, dead serious spy thriller.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, Dalton has Bond, there's some mirthfulness to it at points, which is nice to see. So, all right. With that all said, that is it. If you think we're totally wrong, let us know. But that just means you're wrong. And yeah, that's sort of fun jazz. Anyway, thanks for listening, and we will return.